This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley Smith.
Welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Today is Wednesday, February 11th of 2026, and we are so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I'll be visiting with Matt Herman of the Iowa Soybean Association about the latest news concerning the 45Z tax credit and how that will impact farmers. We'll also have a check of the closing markets with Kenan Layden of agmarket.net. But first, here's that conversation with Matt Herman of the Iowa Soybean Association. We know there's been a lot of really big news to address specifically today, but throughout this week, 45Z tax credits, we're seeing more guidance on that proposed legislation there. What a huge boon for the soybean industry, right?
Yeah, it's a really big deal, and it's been a long time coming. I think, we remember back in 2022 when the original Clean Fuel Production Tax Credit was passed as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, and we've seen kind of guidance dribble out from now two administrations. Kind of the last time we saw any information was in January 2025, literally days before President Trump took office, and now Treasury's put out some final guidance on 45Z. We get a 60-day comment period, but there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Now, that 60-day comment period is very, very critical for this because now that we have the opportunity for this guidance to finally come out, now's the time to make sure it's the guidance that we need for the industry, right?
That's exactly right. So, everybody from farm groups to biofuel producers and ag groups in between are going to be really piling through this guidance over the next few days to really look in there and identify if there's anything that needs to be tweaked or changed or recommended. Now, we are still waiting on the actual GREET model, the calculator, and I do think we're going to see that quite soon because so many folks will want to comment on that. And it's hard to, do your comments in 60 days if you don't have all the information.
So as we move forward through that period, we're waiting for that information to come out. We're seeing a lot of changes already in the soybean prices, commodity-wise, and as we move through this, that's only going to continue to provide strength, right?
Right, and some of those big things that changed actually took effect the first part of the year. So when One Big Beautiful Bill was passed in July, there were several changes that were made to the to 45Z. One thing in particular that was very, very important to soybeans was this removal of the land use change penalty. That took effect January 1. And so now I think, although that's been in effect for about a month, now we're starting to see guidance. It gives the industry some confidence that the administration is actually going to implement this tax credit. And I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing stronger prices today.
So then when we think of the role of the Iowa Soybean Association moving forward, having that producer voice out there to make things heard, what's the best way for those farmers to make sure they're visiting with Iowa Soybean, and then now we're also getting heard on that national scale?
Yeah, I can't actually stress that enough, that the voice of the farmer was absolutely critical in getting this tax package included as part of One Big Beautiful Bill, and frankly, getting these pro-ag modifications. When we look back at what 45Z looked like prior to One Big Beautiful Bill, it was a nice biofuel tax credit, but it wasn't one that really was keyed in towards ag. And, farmers made their voice very loud. They had the political opportunity this summer, and associations like Iowa Soybean through our non-checkoff side, our partners at the American Soybean Association, we elevated those farmers up and we took them into senators' offices and House offices and allowed them to make their case. And I think that's a huge reason that we're in the position we're in today.
Well, Matt, lots of great information today. For anyone who wants to stay in touch with the Iowa Soybean Association, how can they do that?
They can reach out to us. They can find us online. They can call the office, talk to myself, Katie, Megan, any one of us if they want to talk policy. If they want to talk a different area, we can talk about production research or demand with Grant. We've got a lot of opportunity for farmers to engage.
All right, appreciate the time as always, Matt.
Thank you so much.
And that again was Matt Herman with the Iowa Soybean Association. Always great to have him on the show. We'll take a look now at the closing markets, and for that, I'm with Kenan Layden of agmarket.net. Kenan, yesterday was, I think easy to forget, a WASDE report day, as we really didn't see too much come from that. As we look at the grain side of things, how are we trading today?
Yeah, the market seems to have taken that information and just traded through it. So, corn, they increased the exports domestically by 100 million bushels, and corn reacted closing lower on the day. Front month corn is still low. Something to watch there is, that March contract goes into first notice day at the end of the month. So there's a lot of basis pricing by the end of this month within that contract, which can put some pressure on that market and has historically. Corn was down a slight hair in that, so nothing big there. Soybeans up on the day across the board, with some interesting spreading action early on, being kind of bear spread, but up, still trading probably more China or potential China news than the WASI report, which left nothing on the domestic balance sheet to be changed. And wheat was kind of the leader today. Big update in the wheat market. Open interest has been, you could say decreasing. So some people have made a case for short covering. There's also been some talk of the VSRs, or that variable rate storage rate, changing, which may cause some people to buy those contracts. So something to look at there. There could be some follow through. Wheat has kind of been a dead dog, especially in some of the contracts, not really moving too much. But overall, constructive day in the wheat markets.
I know you'd mentioned in the soybean marketplace that the rumors of that Chinese extra purchasing. We saw from Scott Bessent that he didn't make any mention of that in his latest address. Kind of made the markets panic a little bit. So, at this point, we're really just not sure on if that's going to happen or not, right?
Yeah, handshake deal mentioned by the president. Nothing in writing. Nothing was in writing on the first one, but they did buy the 12 million metric tons, which, I don't think you can discount it too hard at this point, whether they buy it or not. That's what the market's trying to decide, but it's given a nice boost to soybeans. And if you're looking at hedge protection for next year, maybe it's a level where makes sense for you in your operation to outlay some risk here moving into next year. But it is our next year's crop. It's something the market will be watching. If they do buy the 8 million metric tons, stocks of old crop could get pretty tight here. So it will be something that's going to cause some volatility and maybe some action in the markets if China does come in and buy those, which I don't think you can completely rule out at this point.
And then over on the livestock side of things, how do cattle and hogs trade today?
Yeah, cattle are up today. They've been hanging in there. They haven't been able to fill the gap left on some of the daily charts, which is, I know, something the market is watching. Cash has been, very strong in some of the sale barns that we track up here. So good to see that good cash trade, which, every time on your show, I feel like if cattle are up, I'm harping on cash being stronger, but it is something that is supporting that market. There's been no headlines to drive it lower. That market has seemed to be very sensitive to the headline news. So no screwworm, no border reopening, no announcements from the government saying that beef prices should go lower. So it continues to march higher, but we're kind of, within the same trading range here the last week or two.
That again was Kenan Layden of agmarket.net. We'll take a look at how the numbers close through the market window at iowaagnet.com. March corn down 4 3/4 at 4.30 and a quarter. March soybeans up 3 even at 11.15 and a quarter. March soybean meal up 40 cents at 303.60. March soybean oil down 32 cents at 55.33. Chicago wheat down 5 1/2 at 5.29 3/4. Kansas City hard red winter wheat down 7 1/4 at 5.31 1/4. Minneapolis spring wheat down 1 1/2 at 5.70 even. March oats down 10 even at 3.01 3/4. On the Merc, February live cattle up 250 at 237.75. March feeders up 335 at 367.42. April lean hogs down 42 cents at 97.95. April pork cutout went unchanged at 103.40. And February Class 3 milk down 13 cents at 15.38. That's been a check in the markets on Ag Matters PM, and that also brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our daily ag news content on our website at iowaagnet.com. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.